Great. There's so much room for stuff. I want to thank all the members of the media for leaving me so much room for my binder. Good morning, everyone. We're here this morning to talk about public safety and the work that our team is doing here at the Akron Police Department, across our city government, and across our community to reduce violence and create safety. So back in May, we had a press conference to talk about our first quarter crime data and let you know how we were looking as a community. At that time, crime was down compared to the first quarter of last year across every major category except sexual assault. Today, we want to talk with you about our numbers for the first half of the year, how they compare to last year at the same time, and we want to share good news and some areas where we are focused on improving. Overall, as we look back at the numbers since 2020 and 2021, as you can see, I think, in your packet, you'll see that our numbers generally continue to trend in the right direction, which is important, but that doesn't mean we don't still have work to do. You've heard me say many times that we are not going to shy away from challenges. We're going to face them head on together, not pretending that there are any easy answers, but we are looking for long-term results. And that's particularly true around public safety as our highest priority and as our solemn responsibility. So it's important that you hear directly from me about where we need to improve. Let's start with the good news. Robbery is down 18% from 112 cases last year at this time to 94 cases in the first half of this year. Felonious assault has decreased by 16% from last year, with 190 cases in the first half of last year and 158 cases so far this year. Overdose deaths are significantly down, which is a great trend. We sadly had 52 overdose deaths in the first half of 2024, and so far this year we've had 28, which is a 46% decline. We obviously hope to see that number at zero. I want to highlight before we go any further that while we are talking about the numbers, while I think that's important, that each incident represents a person's life, represents potentially a victim, and many other people who are impacted around them. So I don't want to focus on the numbers to avoid the fact that with each thing that we're talking about here, we're talking about real people, we're talking about real lives and real experiences, which is really at the heart of why I call this a solemn responsibility and our top priority. Breaking and entering cases are also down from 281 in the first half of last year to 245 so far this year. Auto theft is down significantly. In the first 6 months of 2024, we had 438 cases of auto theft. We're down to 318 cases, which is a 28% decline. Through the first half of the year, murders have remained at the same amount as last year, 12 murders in the first half of last year and 12 murders in the first half of 2025. Additionally, our number of shooting victims has continued to decline. In the first half of last year, we had 92 adult victims of shooting. Of those, 13 were fatal. So far this year, we've had 46 adult victims of a shooting, and 7 have been fatal. So we've also had 1 less fatal juvenile victim and 1 less non-fatal juvenile victim in the first half of the year. Overall calls for service have declined from 69,000 in the first half of last year to 66,000 in the first half of this year. These are all positive trends. These are all things we want to continue to build off of. We want to talk about a few areas in which we want to see some improvement. So we're seeing a slight increase, 1% in shootings and calls for shots fired from last year. We had 823 in the first half of 2024 and 829 in the first half of 2025. Shootings into a habitation have increased from 72 last year to 88 in the first half of this year. Firearms-related offenses have gone from 238 in the first half of last year to 248 so far this year, a 4% increase. And we've continued to see this elevated level when it comes to sexual assault. In the first half of 2023, we had 153 instances of rape. That went down to 136 in the first half of last year. It's gone back up to 151 so far in the first half of 2025. This is, similar to the 2023 number, but it is a 12% increase from where we were last year. While robbery is down, burglary is up 14%. Robbery obviously reflects when a suspect robs a person, whereas burglary is breaking into a building to commit some kind of theft. Finally, our number of firearms recovered has dipped slightly at the beginning of this year. We had 541 firearms recovered by this point last year. We've had 380 so far this year, which is 30% decline. Chief Harding will speak more about that in a moment. So while we are very excited about the areas in which we see a declining trend, we are very focused on the areas where we're not. So you're going to hear more about the ways in which we're addressing crime and violence. And at the center of that is our Akron Police Department. The men and women who work in this building behind me are doing difficult, critical work across our community each and every single day. To talk more about that, I'd like to invite up our Police Chief, Brian Harding.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mayor, very much for the intro. As the Mayor mentioned, quite happy with a lot of our crime numbers, but he also underscored the impact of what every crime means to our community and to our officers. A few things for me, I want to really focus on our gun violence reduction efforts. I know in the past we've talked about some of the work that our department does through partnerships, and I want to highlight a couple of those for a moment. We continue to work with our Gun Violence Reduction Task Force. That is a group of Akron police officers, ATF officers, Summit County Sheriff's deputies, and the University of Akron Police Department, and their sole focus is to work on gun violence reduction, whether that's investigating crimes and working on prevention. As the Mayor mentioned, we were able to recover 380 firearms this year. That number is significantly down from last year, but I want to kind of highlight two main reasons why I feel that number has been decreased. One was last year we had one large seizure of roughly around 80 firearms on one case, so that naturally skewed our numbers a little bit. But additionally, the year before we had a grant that was a state-funded grant that allowed us to put out additional resources and overtime focused on certain areas that we knew to have a greater percentage of violent crime around gun violence, and that's not a grant we have this year, so that has been able to impact some of our proactive measures as well. But I do think that also kind of highlights the impact that grant funding and assistance from our federal and state government, really how it impacts us here locally in our community. But actually, through the ongoing work of our team and our partnerships, we also have a new class of officers graduating this Friday, and that will allow us to continue to have additional resources for the second half of this year. Like I mentioned, this Friday we do swear in 29 additional officers, and we're really excited about that. Another way we've been able to work on this is through our Gun Crime Intelligence Center, which I think I've mentioned previously is that partnership with the ATF, the Sheriff's Department, and our other partners, where we have a NIBINs, which is where we enter casings and firearm data. And I want to take a moment to kind of highlight some of the impact that that's had for us locally. When we first started this initiative, our processing time for a gun we recovered or a shell casing was roughly 7 days from when the incident occurred until we could get that entered and get results back to see if that gun was related to another crime. There's a lot of beer. Bear with me there on that one. We've got that down to 3 days now. And where that means is recently, to highlight a case, we had a shooting at an occupied structure on Work Drive. Good luck. On Work Drive, where we were able to get those shell casings entered, develop a suspect, and proactively get a traffic stop on that person and find them with a gun, then link that gun to that case, ultimately resolving that case. That's kind of the impact that we can have by getting timely, quick intelligence and good information. So I'm really excited about the initiatives that we've had there. I also want to give a highlight on the July 7th, where we saw hundreds of primarily young people gathered at Mason CLC. We had shots begin to ring out and 5 individuals were hit and more than 10 were injured by fleeing vehicles. This is still an ongoing case, but we do have just a few updates. We've been able to identify a few persons of interest from some of the photos we've put out. And also in your packet is a photo we put out previously. We still need the community's help identifying that person. But we have had some movement, but nothing imminent to announce on that. And it is an active investigation, so I can't really share a lot more on that. In addition to the ongoing work to get guns off the streets, identify weapons and suspects, and investigate specific incidents, we've been very intentional about our community engagement efforts. I know you've heard the mayor and I both talk about that repeatedly. Earlier this year, we added a 4th subdivision called Community Relations and Crime Prevention, and Deputy Chief Mike Miller is leading that division. We've really made it a priority to be visibly present in our community, really focused on the areas that are most impacted by crime. Last night was a prime example. I know I saw a few of you out there last night as well for National Night Out. That was a really excellent opportunity for our officers in our community to come together at all 10 wards in our city and kind of continue to develop relationships. We've also been working with our community partners, specifically Victim Assistance, Minority Behavioral Health Group, to ensure victims of violent crime do not feel forgotten and have access to resources and support they need to overcome trauma. As mentioned earlier, this Friday we have 29 recruits that will be graduating from our academy class and bolster our ranks. And we've done some really different and innovative things with our current academy class. And we're really excited about some of that. But to really highlight and talk about what's changed for us and what we've done different, I'd like to bring in Deputy Chief Miller, who's going to kind of talk about some of those efforts.
Good morning, everyone. As Chief mentioned, my name is Michael Miller. I am the Deputy Chief over our Community Relations Crime Prevention Subdivision. And as framed by Chief Harding early on was, community engagement is essential to our efforts to enhance public safety. We've done some unique and exciting things in our community engagement efforts that included partnership and collaborating with not only our officers from all divisions within our agency, but also our community nonprofits, and bringing us all into a space where we can identify some of the needs and interests and take those steps together. So one of the first things that we did to enhance our community engagement efforts, and this was kind of birthed out of some recommendations from the community a year or two prior, was getting our academy cadets, the participants in our academy, out into the community, participating in community engagement sooner. So there was a program called Reverse Ride Along. One of our neighboring police agencies in Cleveland had a program like that, so we had some of our folks go meet with them, understand a little bit more about that. And essentially what that is we brought our cadets out of the academy classroom space into the community, meeting nonprofit community leaders, community members, citizens, in a sit-down conversation to kind of learn more about their perspective as cadets and their early tenure into their law enforcement journey, but also hearing sentiments and expressions of even gratitude or appreciation, but also concerns if there were any in that ride-along space. So it was a very robust conversation. It gave us a lot of takeaways that we can build upon, and we plan to expand that out by continuing our partnership with other nonprofits to really expand that program moving forward. The other unique opportunity, over the last couple of years, we've had some community town hall discussions, and that space is always provided to hear from community about things that matter to them, also give us an opportunity to express things and communicate initiatives that we've been a part of. But kind of what birthed out of that was, is that the best format, right? And we don't define what's best for community. We allow community to tell us, hey, how they would like to see that engagement, right? And so we partnered with Project Ujima, which is a local nonprofit here in the community in the city of Akron. And what they've done for us is they have organized and facilitated peace circles. Those peace circles are designed to, it's sacred, it's confidential, there's rules of engagement, if you will, but really we brought members of our clergy and or our police officers from different units within the police department in a circle to have discussion around things that matter uniquely to community. And out of that came a real sense of gratitude from us and also the other community participants, because they were able to hear for the first real time perspectives from police officers, right? There are a lot of narratives that have been out there and different things that would tend to divide a community, but this was a real opportunity at the grassroots level to hear from community in real time and from community to hear from our officers. We found that to be extremely beneficial, and almost every participant walked away with highlights and gratitude and participate for their participation in that role. We plan to continue those style communications to the extent that there's interest from the community to do that. Project Ujima was essential in that, and they were an excellent community partner in that space. Community engagement, again, is going to continue to be a primary focus for us. We plan in the future to look for other unique opportunities and ways to engage the community, including opportunity to meet community where they're at. Doesn't have to be always on our terms, but meet community where they're at, really get to hear and learn and hear from them. Really, the goal is to build relationships and strengthen trust and partnerships in the community. That includes conversation with mentoring agencies in our community, and we want to continue to explore those opportunities so that it enhances our community engagement efforts. So those are just a few things that we've done here recently. We're excited for those experiences, and we look forward to expounding on and extending those opportunities outward. I'll turn it back over at this time to the mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Miller. He and I are different heights. I'm trying not to break this. All right. I really just want to thank both Chief Harding and Deputy Chief Miller for the work that they're talking about. Like I said, it represents the work that hundreds of folks do every day when they get up and begin their shifts. And yesterday was a great example. Many of you were out at National Night Out. It's a whole lot of fun, but often allows us all to kind of see past our titles or uniforms and focus on our shared humanity. And so it means a lot to me. I know both Chief and I were at the Dialogue Circle on Monday that Project Ujima had. And again, another way of creating space to focus on our shared humanity and take some time to dig into issues rather than just the kind of sound bites or sometimes when we're in our own echo chamber. I want to take a second before we move on and talk about recently we have seen violence against law enforcement in a number of situations. We saw the ambush and the murder of Officer Philip Wagner right here in Northeast Ohio in Lorain. We saw the murder of Officer Dadar al-Islam in Manhattan, in the shooting that happened in Midtown. And we've seen other incidents. And last week, obviously, the funeral of Officer Wagner happened up in Cleveland. And I think it's important to just take a moment and both honor the sacrifice of those officers and other officers who have been injured or wounded in acts of violence, but also to note that it underscores the dangers that officers face each day, again, when they begin their shift. And also then the fear that family members have, right, when they're going through their day and they're hoping their loved one's going to come back home. And so I think it's important that we condemn that violence, just as we condemn all violence in our community, no matter who is perpetrating it. All violence deserves to be condemned, and we have to work around accountability, as Chief talked about with regard to gun violence. So I also want to take a moment here and invite up our Summit County Prosecutor, Elliot Kolkovich. As Chief Harding mentioned, we have a variety of partners who are working with us around gun violence. And one of the key pieces that we're focused around is accountability, right? So when someone is perpetrating violence, they need to be held accountable for that conduct. Again, no matter who they are, they need to be held accountable. And so Elliot's office is a key piece of the partnership in that. I want to invite up County Prosecutor Elliot Kolkovich.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mayor Malik. Thank you, Chief Harding, Deputy Chief Miller. Thanks for taking a few minutes on this beautiful day here in downtown Akron. In echoing the mayor's findings through statistics, we are finding the same thing at the countywide level. If we compare the first 8 months of this year to the first 8 months of last year, we have seen a 10% decrease in the number of cases sent to our office for prosecution. But while we are seeing a decrease in the number of cases sent to us, we are seeing increase in our successful prosecution of the most serious cases. When I took over here about, a little over a year now, we refocused our office. We created a major trial unit dedicated to focusing on the most serious crimes. We have also developed subject matter expertise in our areas to make sure that we are at the forefront of every cutting-edge technology. But what we have seen now is when we look at our mandatory time convictions for firearm offenses, our resolution successful prosecutions are up 15% in that same 8-month period. We are also fighting more at trial. We have tried 15 cases in the first 8 months of this year involving serious cases. That's up from 6 from last year. We are fighting on more serious, harder cases. We have also seen that we have had more successful prosecutions of defendants pleading to all charges in the indictment. We have doubled those numbers from the first 8 months of last year. What we are focusing on our office is finding the most difficult cases and prosecuting them to the fullest extent of the law. We just wrapped up a successful prosecution for a shooting that occurred in August 2023 in Pine Knolls Drive. Those 4 defendants received a combined 45 years in prison. I would like to highlight the work of 2 Akron officers and detectives in that case. Detective Woods spent a lot of time pouring through the cell phone extractions that gave us successful evidence to prosecute that case. And Detective Chris Crockett, who I've had the great opportunity to know and work with over the past 15 years, you're not going to find a more determined officer. It is no exaggeration to say that Detective Crockett makes that case. And it is because of his work that we are able to successfully prosecute those 4 defendants. And we just want to end by saying that if you commit a crime in Akron, you commit a violent crime in Summit County, you're going to be held accountable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prosecutor. We appreciate your partnership. And before we open it up for questions, I just want to conclude with one final note. When we talk about our Safer Together plan, we truly mean together, right? We build and kind of start with the hard work of our police department. We work with our other partner law enforcement agencies. We also work on community violence intervention, like the Credible Messenger Street Team program we've talked about in recent months. Just a couple weeks ago, we had a press conference at Ed Davis Community Center where we talked about our work around youth opportunity to help give youth spaces and places where they can have fun, where they can connect with each other in safe ways, and where we can help them learn skills to make good choices. That's not just investing in the nonprofits that you saw behind me that day, but also exciting programs like our Connect at the Rec, which has been wildly successful this summer. The final event is this Friday, so we'd encourage anyone with kids 6 to 12 to check that out tomorrow. Friday, and then we'll be kind of doing a debrief and looking at what version 2.0 of that program looks like. But a huge shout out with that program to our Parks and Rec department. A huge shout out when it comes to our Street Team pilot program to public safety strategist Tony Ingram and our partners with Minority Behavioral Health Group. Again, it is this layered approach that we truly mean together. And all of these approaches share a common goal, reducing incidents of violence in our community and creating real safety in Akron. Akron has been in the news recently for comments about public safety. It's important that you hear directly from us about what we are doing when it comes to violence, what we are doing when it comes to violent crime, and what we are doing about it. The reality is that Akron is a city with opportunities and challenges, like many other cities across this country. But I don't represent other cities across this country. I represent Akron. And what I'm proud of in Akron is that we are committed to looking at these problems head on, not brushing anything under the rug, focusing on our challenges, not running away from those challenges, and then tackling them together. So with that, we'll open up to any questions that you have.
Related to the Vice President saying that Akron, Canton, and Columbus are lawless places where families may not feel safe to eat?
Yeah, so we put out a statement last week in response to that. I think what you've seen is that over the last several months downtown, we've had many positive events without any major incident. Every weekend, folks are coming downtown and celebrating wonderful festivals. Our Italian American Festival, our African American Festival, got more events coming. And, you know, I invited the vice president to come and check out our downtown, to have dinner at one of our amazing restaurants. And, you know, I think that what I'm focused on is the reality, and inviting people to come down and see that reality firsthand themselves. I think when folks come to a show downtown at Lock 3, whether it's a country show, whether it's a hip hop show, whether it's a classic rock cover band, I don't know how many times we can have these classic rock cover bands, but people really enjoy them, and I like the Eagles just as much as anybody. But whether you're doing that, whether you're coming to a Rubber Ducks game, whether you're coming to the Civic, there's amazing things going on downtown, and I don't think that comments about lawlessness are grounded in the realistic picture of what is going on downtown.
Can we just talk about that person of interest that we have right here?
Sure.
CLC shooting. I think this is the first time I've seen this picture, so forgive me if I'm wrong. It's been out there, but if you guys could just speak to the viewers that are watching this right now, you know, what do you want them to know about that shooting, and how important is it for people to come forward, get information out? You know, what are you looking for?
It's critical. What we've been kind of spirited this conversation is about violent crime, specifically focused on gun crime. That's a senseless act that it's important that we get the community. When we talk about partnerships, responding and prevention, it takes all of us, right? The entire community. I think we shared one of those photos previously. We're sharing it again to asking for the community's help, right? Somebody can help us identify that person. We absolutely want to have a conversation with them about their role and what occurred there. But as we build partnerships and we continue to work together, it really increases safety and the perception of safety in our community. So it's absolutely vital that we work on that case, as we do every case. As the mayor mentioned earlier, you know, violent crime has a real impact on not just the family involved, but on the entire community and the neighborhood and on all of us. So it's important that we work on that, but community's help is vital in that regard. No, so that one, like I said, we're looking to help identify that person. We've been able to identify some additional people, their persons of interest in the case, and it's moving forward, but that will definitely be very helpful. Thanks.
All right, one more thing, and then you can pass it. I know this summer you guys have set up several of these press conferences, and they've been super helpful, just really reiterating to the public, hey, we're really trying to improve crime statistics and things like that. You know, as we held another press conference today, I know you shared a few messages, but if there was really one thing, one message to get to the public today, what would that be?
It is, like I've said throughout the last year and a half of doing this job, we are focused relentlessly on making this community safer. And we are not talking about easy answers. We're not talking about snapping our fingers and everything will be better, right? These are real profound challenges. But it's also about really honoring the work that a lot of people are doing across our city each and every day, working around safety. And so I'm not sitting here and saying, you know, you see a decrease in a quarter, you see an increase in a quarter, that there's a causal relationship, right? But I do think it's worth just taking a second and reflecting on the hard work our folks do in the police department. And then also look at the amazing work that our folks are doing in Parks and Rec with this program, the amazing work that we're doing with some of these community violence intervention projects. And so the amazing work of our county prosecutor's office, our sheriff's office, and other partners in this work. And so what I'm trying to send a message is that safety is our top priority, and that can mean a lot of different things. Sometimes it can mean street cleaning. But no, it can mean an awful lot of things, and we're here to talk about all the different layers that we are putting together. And again, not claiming that that's going to change things overnight, not hiding away from the bad stuff, but we are in this focused on it together.
Has your team reached out to the Vice President's team to extend that invitation to them directly to come down to Akron, and if so, have they accepted?
we did when the vice president was here, but that was a event that was already in progress. I want to shout out the work that our police department and our fire department did in supporting the vice president's visit when he was here. But the vice president's an Ohioan, so we look forward to trying to make that happen in the future.
When you're looking at, I know you said
Sorry.
it's okay, it's fine. What has been working? When you're seeing these statistics, some of them drop. I know that's not the whole picture, but what has been working that you've been doing?
Well, again, I'm not going to go into causation, but I'd invite the chief and the prosecutor if they'd like to speak to that.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so I think your question was around what do we think is kind of making the difference? What's working? I think it's a layered approach. I think it's the community outreach from our officers. We have really dedicated team of officers coming every day, extremely focused on making a difference in the people we serve every day. And maybe I didn't mention earlier, but I really want to give a shout out to them. We take this very seriously. But as Deputy Chief Miller mentioned, it's also the entire community, right? As we talk about those proactive engagement on the front end, as we talk about building partnerships with the community, as we talk about building partnerships with our federal partners and other law enforcement agencies, partnerships with our prosecutors' offices, both federally, locally, and in the county, it takes everybody. Violent crime and crime in general is really a community issue, and we really are uber focused on that. We do pay attention to the stats. Look for trends. I know we talked about the last year and a half, but if you go back to 22, 23, we've seen a really significant decrease across the country and here locally in that. But really, to me, it's about partnerships and developing relationships.
Can I ask about the overdose deaths?
Yeah, sure.
Do you think that that's following the national trend? I know that overdose deaths have been down nationally, or is there anything in particular that you think has made a difference there?
They are. I think there's a lot of help with some mental health resources, the Scout team associated with that. I think additional presence of Narcan, both with officers and our fire paramedics, additional resources at the hospital. And again, it's a community thing. Even in community centers, and people that are in that lifestyle have the ability to get some of that medicine that's going to help them as well. So I think kind of some of the changes, that eliminating some of the stigma around seeking treatment and help. We have a quick response team that is a co-location where we'll go out and follow up on overdose deaths with a mental health clinician as well, and try to get people into services. Thanks.
Do you want to add it?
I think from the prosecutor's office perspective in regards to what do we think is working or what are we trying to do, the statistic I actually probably look at most is how many cases we're taking to trial. There are hard cases, there are difficult cases, there are shooting cases. There's one where witnesses cooperate, then they don't cooperate. There's ones where the witness's statement is one thing one day, one thing another day. And the stance our office has taken is we're going to try those hard cases. Yeah, we're not going to win them all, but we're going to fight for them. And we're going to make you answer for your actions.
29 in the class that graduates Friday, is that right?
Correct. Yes.
That seems a very good number for police academies these days. With that, can you tell us where your manpower is versus what's budgeted?
Yeah, so your question was specifically around the size of the class being 29, how that's kind of impact us there and kind of where we're at budget-wise. When they hit the street, we'll be roughly around 458, 460. Our high strength is 488. Actually, behind here, some of our recruiters have done an excellent job. We have another list, so we'll start interviews hopefully here soon for an additional class. But I think people are excited about law enforcement, excited for the opportunity to serve our community. We have a great team. We work hard on developing and recruiting locally, and that's kind of shown them that success. We had a large class in the past, and we're extremely excited to have 29 hit the streets next week. I think that makes a huge impact on the morale of our officers. It makes a huge impact on our ability to proactively prevent crime, to make sure that we're in neighborhoods that are most impacted, and we continue to develop those relationships. So.
There's a lot up here.
Go ahead.
All right, Chief. To piggyback on that question, a lot of the trend that we're seeing right now is, we attend a lot of events. The events themselves are very safe. They're very heavily controlled. Where we're seeing these incidents take place are in neighborhoods, and they're in parking lots outside the events. If you use the Summit County Fair as an example, right? So I guess the main question is, from a funding standpoint, how do we increase patrols and patrol cars out on the streets to be in those neighborhoods, like you said, to proactively handle these situations? Knowing that there's a group of teens gathered at after midnight in a parking lot doesn't seem like a normal behavior we would just allow to take place. So how do we get ahead of that?
So I think there's a lot of parts to your question there. You're talking specifically, I keep asking me to restate the question, so I'll keep trying my best. you're asking about how do we do a better job or how we work together around juveniles specifically, not just locally, but in the entire community, especially after hours. So in Akron, we do have a curfew at 11, so we can work on that. But I think, there's no way to have a police officer everywhere. It's a community issue, right? We do keep track of our stats where crime is and look at those locations. We also just don't work in silos. Our partnerships here, our partnerships in the community about creating, the mayor mentioned earlier, about the Youth Success Summit, creating opportunities for our youth to have other activities, to keep them engaged, keep them busy, job opportunities and others. So I think it's a multi-layered approach. We have seen improvements in those numbers, but there's always work to do. So we're not going to shy away from national best practices and local best practices in that regard. But creating opportunity is a big issue, and community collaboration and cooperation when we do have concerns. But if people have a concern, specifically call us. I mean, our calls are down. We respond to a lot of calls, but we're absolutely, give us a call. We'll come out and take a look at what's going on.
Yeah, wondering if you can help me understand some of the stats a little bit better. For the overdose deaths, what drugs are you seeing now compared to previous years? What trends are you seeing? And then I'm wondering also if you can help me understand the firearms recovery. So that's down. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Wow, great question. So two things. You asked about some of the drugs that we're seeing, and around overdose deaths, and you asked, is it good or bad that guns are down? Overdose deaths, we continue to see a lot of heroin, fentanyl, carfentanil, some other opioid mixes that are synthetic drugs, or seem to be the bigger issues, and that's a real concern because of how strong they are and how a small amount can make an impact. So no different nationally, you'll see that across the country. Gun seizures down. I guess you could look at it from two different lenses. You can look at it from, that means there's less guns in the community, or you can look at it from the lens that we just need to make sure that we're doing proactively getting those guns off the street. I think it's a little too early to tell, if you want my opinion on it today, but we are extremely focused on making sure we're working collaboratively to get guns off the street.
You guys have like a quota?
No, we have no quotas anywhere across the board. No, not at all. Nope.
Any other questions? Okay, want to thank everybody for coming out. We really appreciate it.
Thanks.